So for me to be the first Black woman to have ownership in a space that's moving that fast and getting that much attention, I find that to be game changing in and of itself. And I would like to change the game so much so that I'm not the only one standing out here by myself for a very long time.
Welcome to the Whiskey Lifestyles Women in Whiskey series. I am your host, Rashawn Hall, and we are back with a new episode with getting into flavored whiskeys this week. I know they're controversial. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk to someone who can tell you all about why you're wrong about flavored whiskeys if you have impressions that about flavored whiskeys. So welcome in CEO of Frisky Whisky, Nicole Young. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rashawn.
Yeah, great. So first off, let's talk a little bit about how you got into the spirit. What brought you into the world of whiskey?
It's interesting. The thing that you just said at the beginning ties right into my answer to your question. So the impressions that people have about whiskey that may are flavored whiskey specifically, that may or may not be super favorable. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree with those opinions. And it's many of those opinions that sort of were the driving factor behind why I even wanted to, put myself into this crazy business. No, I actually love the whiskey business. I was not somebody who thought of themselves as having necessarily a future in ownership, but a really good opportunity came my way and I took that opportunity. So my business partner and I have been in, working contact with each other for a very long time. He was a co-founder of Hpnotiq, Deep Blue liqueur, if you're familiar. He's a great guy.
Iconic.
Jim Landis, iconic, right? So he and I worked together on that product along with his partner at that time a while back. My partner's name is Jim Landis. He's a great guy. He and I go back to those Hpnotiq days, and I was working with him on a brand of his prior to Frisky called William Wolf. That is a line that has flavored bourbons as well as straight whiskey. So when he was interested in expanding that line into a flavored whiskey, he brought me on to collaborate with him on it. We came up with the Frisky flavor. I'm giving you the condensed version because it's literally like an 8-year story. But we came up with the Frisky flavor. We knew we had a hit when we came up with that flavor. And once that flavor was put out into the marketplace and tested and tasted, and it went through a round of Spirit Bureau challenges and competitions and was rated extremely high. Frisky is the highest rated flavored whiskey ever. I'll get to that next. Once it got to that point, we realized that this product that was an extension of another line really should have its own identity, be its own brand, be its own thing. So fast forward to March of 2022, I took over the company and became the CEO and the major shareholder in the company that I helped to co-found essentially. So when you ask, why did you get into the business? It's kind of like it was something that it was a journey that I was on that took me to this place now. But the opportunity presented itself, and I thought that knowing that we had something that was so different that could really be a changer in the industry, a disruptor, or something that would be a gateway whiskey for people who didn't really do whiskey before that, but also something that traditionalists who typically poo-poo flavored whiskey would respect. That was something that was very exciting and interesting to me.
So you said you worked with Jim on Hpnotiq. What experience did you have there? Which again and this is about Frisky, but Hpnotiq, for those who don't know, has a very storied career in ties to hip hop, and you've seen that blue bottle in so many amazing hip hop videos. Ironically, just as a quick aside, I was in Cognac for a trip last year and found it both amazing and astonishing that in this beautiful museum that talks about the history of Cognac, there is a bottle of Hpnotiq behind a glass case. It talks about how America influenced and changed, which is amazing. But what did you learn in that experience, kind of working on that brand that influenced Frisky?
That is legendary. That in Cognac, in a museum, there's Hpnotiq there. So that is really a testament to a lot of what I learned. So some of the things that I learned, somebody like Jim in particular has years, decades of experience. At that time, he had already had a lot of experience. He grew up in the spirits business. He comes with a certain amount of pedigree in the industry. And so I learned a lot from him about what it takes to be a brand that draws people's attention. Because before you taste a product, you have no idea what it is. So you have hundreds of thousands of liquor SKUs that enter the marketplace every year. Only a fraction of those hundreds of thousands actually end up on your liquor store shelf or in the retailers where you shop. And then once you get to that point, how do you stand out? I don't know if you've ever been to like a Total Wine store, thousands of liquor products everywhere you look. So how do you stand out? How do you get people's attention before they even opened up your product? What do you do? What is your packaging strategy? How are you going to market this product? How are you going to draw them in? So being that I learned things about the technical side and the back end side from Jim, I myself have a background in the branding side, the marketing side. I currently, I wear another hat at the same time as I'm running Frisky Whisky. I'm also on air. I work in broadcast. So I have an understanding of how to tell a story, get someone's attention, engage them, and make them want to try whatever it is that, that you're putting out there. So the experience of working with him on Hpnotiq, and, that was a very different time in spirits. That was a different time in entertainment. That was a different time in business. So a lot of the kind of grassroots strategies that we were able to implement back then are not what we can do now because, frankly, people wouldn't get paid. But more than that, it's just, the idea of brands being sort of celebrities themselves or having that fame or having that kind of attention, brands that are not owned by huge companies that are spending millions of dollars, those types of that type of knowledge, I'm grateful to have picked that up from working with him on that project. And we've been able to remix some of that and make it more, this decade friendly.
Okay. And you talked about working with him on the Frisky flavor profile. Describe what that profile is and how you all got to it.
So that profile is an award-winning profile. It's what makes Frisky what it is, and it's what we're most proud of. So Frisky Whisky is a premium whiskey that is infused with pure caramel and a little, I like to say, kiss of natural vanilla. So when you talk about what makes a premium whiskey a good flavored whiskey, you're looking for back-end notes such as caramel, vanilla, wood, and smoke. So when we wanted to figure out what exactly this flavored whiskey would taste like, and where it would sort of skew on the flavor scale, at that time, and you're talking, 2015-ish, you were looking at a lot of fruit flavored whiskeys. And, a lot of those flavors, people who just want to mix them into cocktails or, down them into shots, it is what it is for that. But if you're trying to appreciate a whiskey with flavor, those flavors did not translate to that type of palate, which is why I think a lot of people even now are still kind of like, flavored whiskey. But a lot of these whiskeys were also masking the whiskey. We use ultra premium, 100% premium whiskey. There's no spirit whiskey. There's no filler going into Frisky Whisky. It's premium whiskey. It's pure caramel. It's not a lot of sugar. It's the pure caramel, and then it's the natural vanilla. We don't add additional sugar on top of caramel, which is, already sweet. Made from sugar. So we wanted to lean into those natural flavors that occur in whiskey so that we're essentially flavoring the whiskey to just taste like enhanced whiskey. It is a very confectionery aroma that you get when you first open the bottle, but once you taste it, it's not an overly sweet flavor. It's not something that you want to kind of wash down with something else. It's a flavor that you enjoy it lingering. We also filtered out everything that makes whiskey so, how do I put this? Warm. I call it a burn. When I again take a sip of a straight whiskey, my first reaction is like, it can't even go down. It wants to come back up. That's just me. Some people appreciate that. Some people are looking for that. But for the people that aren't, Frisky Whisky really fills that void.
Okay. And why? I mean, it may be an obvious question. I hear it obviously when you say it, but why Frisky Whiskey?
So, you know, we consider Frisky Whiskey flavor, flair, and fun. And that name to me represents all of those things. It's also a great balance. It's like if you have a group of friends and the one that you would describe as frisky is the one who's the most fun. It's the one who's down for anything, but frisky is also a little bit in my opinion, it's a little, it's a little sexy, but it's not like totally raunchy. It's not tawdry. That's not your friend who's, drunk and clinging to your leg on the floor, had too much to drink. That's your friend who, is on the dance floor all night, but looks cute when it's all over. That's kind of my feeling on the frisky, like somebody, it's like tapping into that energy, that fun side, but also keeping it cool.
Okay. So balance. Okay. Cool. And you mentioned, we talked a little bit about misconceptions. What is when you talk to people about flavored whiskeys and you're, if you're at a Total Wine, you're at a retail location or a bar trying to taste somebody on it, what is what is a common misconception you hear from people like, flavored whiskeys are ...
Flavored whiskeys are gross. Those are disgusting. No, flavored whiskeys are not my thing. That's what I typically hear from people. But it's just, there are two things. So I get either flavored whiskey is not my thing from the whiskey drinkers, or, I can't do, I don't do whiskey. Those are really the two, I would say those are the 50-50 reactions that I get to people who are not intrigued and interested in trying it. So Let's say I'm at a food and wine festival. We do a lot of those because that's one of the great ways to kind of activate and get your liquid onto people's lips. I get a lot of that. So the first thing I say to them is, okay, you know what? Why don't you smell this? Once they open the bottle, once they get a whiff, now they're, I'll try that. And then, I would say at least 9 out of 10 times, I get a completely pleasantly surprised, shocked, in awe, thrilled response from people after that first sip of Frisky. I really haven't had a lot of reactions of like negative. I've had people who don't drink at all.
Yeah.
Me, okay. You know what? I don't drink, but that was.
But now I do.
Yeah. But now I'm going to rehab. No, but now I see what I've been missing is what is what the sentiment is. So that's what I think. Biggest misconception I would say, sorry to cut you off, is people either assume that it's going to be not tasty, too sweet, too artificial, or they think it's going to be too harsh and something that they can't enjoy.
And that's interesting. You mentioned the Food and Wine Festival, and I know other spirits who do that, but I just, I immediately, as soon as you said that, I thought about the culinary applications of a spirit like this. Is that something that you all have experimented with, and, whether it's cooking with it, using it in desserts, et cetera?
Well, interestingly enough, my first thought and reaction, I have a recipe developer background. I still do that. I'm married to a chef. We are foodies. We cook. My first thought was always, no cooking with this. This is premium whiskey. I want people to sip this, enjoy this, mix this into cocktails. I want to change people's minds about whiskey. I don't want, and then, with it being something that's a caramel forward flavor, I also get people, like I said before, assuming it's going to be like some kind of liqueur and a dessert, drink, way too sweet. So my thought was, okay, if people, because I was getting a lot of outreach from chefs, from pastry chefs, they hear caramel, they want to bake with it. And I was like, absolutely not. I can't stop anyone from doing it, but that's not my vibe. But what I have found is that, first of all, it is delicious in baked goods, but it also does lend itself to a lot of savory things and recipes that you wouldn't necessarily think it could work in. For example, I'm right now working with somebody, an amazing man out of Michigan, who creates a product called Lorraine's Premium Barbecue Sauce. And he created a Frisky blend that we are kind of playing around with right now and figuring out exactly where we want to go with that. But I can tell you it is delicious. It's not sweet. It's not, it's just like Frisky. It's unexpectedly like amazing. It's really, really good. And it's not something that I would have expected it to taste like. So I'm not as opposed anymore to, having people play around with it in that way. I just personally don't do that much of it, but it does lend itself to that for sure.
Cool. And you mentioned you wear many hats. So, because you have a marketing background, you do media, you're doing Frisky. How do you achieve that work-life balance? As obviously this is also an industry that is very much about long nights and weekends and et cetera. How do you juggle all of that? What is that perspective?
We also didn't even touch on my biggest, most important job is I have a 6.5-year-old son. So I also have that boss. No, I have that superior to answer to as well.
Mm-hmm.
That time clock is always running. To achieve, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I would be lying if I had some brilliant answer for that question. The truth is, I try to stick to to-do lists. I try to make sure that I am prioritizing what needs to be done and getting the things that need to be done the most, first and foremost, getting those things done first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And, luckily I'm a night owl, so I'm up late. I don't have, there's no, I could be like, well, I rely on blah, 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 but I would also be lying because I don't have the answer to that question. I just do my best to get as much done as I can. I am blessed, though. I will say that as far as Frisky Whisky, I do have an amazing team of people that I work with. I'm not an island. I don't do this by myself. I have great partners. I have an amazing and supportive investor. I have a national sales director who is if I'm putting in, 18 hours a day, she's putting in 28. So there are people who are working, equally as hard, if not even harder than me to make sure that we accomplish what we need to. We're a small team, we're a mighty team, and we're highly motivated to have this brand succeed.
And to that, you led me perfectly into that question. See, that is that media background. What does success for Frisky Whisky look like to you? How do you define that?
Success for Frisky Whisky for me looks like, being a national brand, being a brand that when you walk into every liquor store, every chain, it's just right there, readily available. I have this beautiful premium packaging that stands out. I just want to see that packaging all over the place. I think that at this point, we're still very much still in a startup phase. We're right now in 8 markets. We just launched our 8th market, which is Michigan. We're very excited about that. And so right now, success looks like, success is like a rolling answer. Right now, success looks like going deeper into the markets that we're in and making sure that we are, setting up a good foothold and a strong presence there, and that we're able to, service and fulfill retail as well as on premise in the hospitality world in these 8 markets that we're in. One of the markets is New York, which is where I'm based. I'm born and raised New Yorker. This is a very tough market. We're in Atlanta. We are in Georgia. I'm naming it by cities. We're in New York. We're in New Jersey. We're in Georgia, Florida, Texas, Michigan, South Carolina, and Illinois. These are markets that are strong markets. They are, pretty big markets that require a lot of work and a lot of diligence. And so success right now looks like getting those markets exactly where they need to be, hitting the goals that we have for ourselves in these markets. And then future success looks like taking that same model and moving further and further across the country.
Okay, cool. And we always like to end our interview with a little fun, little lighthearted question. So, and we've been mixing the first 2 seasons. We were all about asking everyone the same question, and I feel like that gave an unfair advantage to some people who were starting to see episodes. So we've been mixing that up. Ironically, I don't even think my producer knows what my question is because I just sort of have been noodling it this afternoon. So the question is, if you've seen, I'm sure you've seen all these movies about startups. So whether it's the WeWork startup, the WeWork movie, or the Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes, etc. If there was a Frisky Whisky movie that talked about the start of Frisky Whisky and and your work behind it and the trajectory of it to its success, what's the title of that movie?
I thought you were going to ask who's going to play me in the movie. I had the answer ready.
1A. Let's go. 1A. Let's also add that in there. I like that.
But question 1, the answer is the name of that movie is.
You can give me the actor first, and then come back. Give you some time to think about it.
person that would play me in that movie is Kelly Rowland.
Okay.
I think she is I think she would play a great me. I think that this name, but it would be called the Game Changer because
Frisky's the highest rated
flavored whiskey ever. Flavored whiskeys did not, prior to this, have this type of recognition by the industry, by the tastings bureaus, by the people that matter to us behind the scenes in the spirits industry. I'm the first Black woman to own a flavored whiskey brand. Why does that even matter? Flavored whiskeys are about to sell, I believe last year, they hit the 20 million case per year mark. That is just behind tequila, which is selling over 20 million cases a year. So for an industry like this, the trades are calling flavored whiskey, the hottest, the fastest growing, one of the most significant categories in spirits right now. So for me to be the first Black woman to have ownership in a space that's moving that fast and getting that much attention, I find that to be game changing in and of itself. And I would like to change the game so much so that I'm not the only one standing out here by myself for a very long time. So that I would like to be a game changer. And that's what I would hope the movie would be called.
Okay. No, I think you as you've said, you've already changed the game. So Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Like you've said, so, you've done so much in this space already and you're only getting started. So appreciate you sharing your story and Frisky Whisky with us. So thank you so much. Cheers.
My pleasure.